And welcome to the Gold Newsletter YouTube channel. My name is Kai Hoffmann. I'm the @JR Mining Guy on Twitter, and together with Brien Lundin, I'm your host of this channel, and I'm really looking forward to this company introduction. It's with Founders Metals. We're being joined by the president and CEO, Colin Padget, here in a few short seconds. And Founders Metals has been an absolute success story in a very dire market, and we're going to explore why that is. Like, why are they so successful? Trading at $2.60 as we speak, $190 million market cap, $7 million in the bank, and they're probably exploring one of the hottest areas on the globe right now, the Guyana Shield. So we're going to investigate a little bit and chat with Colin how that success came about and what can we expect from the company moving forward, of course. If you haven't done so, hit that like and subscribe button. It helps us out tremendously, reach a wider audience, and of course, if you're investing in the company, more investors like yourself will see it. Now, without much further ado, Colin, it is a pleasure to have you on the program. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, we need to dive deep into Founders, like absolute meteoric rise. And you put out news this morning, which is coincidental. Like, we've planned this interview in August, I think. So it's been a while in the making. But it felt like you had a bit of a coronation ceremony this morning when I saw the press release. And you've appointed Chris Taylor to the board of directors. I think that's a huge appointment. It's the first time I think he's out in public again. So. Congratulations.
Yeah, no, we're really happy to have him come on board. I mean, we've got a few shareholders that I think have maybe poked him over time about Founders being maybe something to have a look at, and kind of finally had a chance to meet him myself and get him connected with the technical team, and he really liked the technical side of it and the story and the team all together. So it's great having him on board.
No, fantastic. Yeah, Colin, we need to start at the beginning, of course. Like, we need to figure out why Chris Taylor fell in love with Founders and why he decided to join the board. Give us a quick 60-second overview of the company, and then we'll dive into some of the specifics.
Sure. I mean, the big picture overview is, we started, basically acquired the Antino project back last year in March, and got drilling with two of our own diamond drills in June of last year. Did about 10,000 meters of drilling with quite a few pretty impressive drill holes last year, over 100 gram meter product, and then came into the start of 2024 looking at 45,000 meters as the plan, and right now we're about 35,000 meters into that. With it looks like we're pretty much on track to hit that number at the end of the year. So right now we're sitting at 19 intervals over 100 gram meters. We've had a couple over 400, and just really have put the technical piece and the understanding of the geology together quite quickly. We've had a lot of success hiring a really good complement of technical people and people who understand the geology in the area, and it's starting to prove out.
We're going to talk geology in a second, because I'd love to get an overview of the Guyana Shield and why it is so hot right now, and why everybody, not everybody, but a lot of success stories are coming out of the Guyana Shield, like Reunion Gold, for example, did quite well until they got bought by G Mining here recently. But before we dive into that, catch us up on the corporate share structure as well. Like, how much cash do you have, and runs a bit through the largest shareholders.
Sure. So Sony, actually, as of today, because we just closed the 51% part of our option agreement, but about 75 million shares outstanding, right around $6 million cash in the bank. We've got what equivalent to just under $4 million in warrants outstanding right now that all expire in March here coming up. So that's cash that will come into the account and kind of trickles in every week, more or less. So that, in terms of shareholders, like, our biggest shareholder right now is Rob Cohen with Dynamic Funds, 1832. He actually got involved very early in the story. Met our VPX very early on last year, July timeframe, and I came in for at the kind of 40-cent level earliest on, and at this point, it's kind of continuing to stay involved, and we're glad to have him. We had BlackRock in May as well come in as a large institutional shareholder for a 9.9 position at the $1.60 mark.
Nice. Yeah, so everybody's in the money. Everybody's happy because the share price has been continuously increasing. That's why all the warrants are in the money, which is fantastic. Yes. And congrats on that. Oftentimes I've seen the warrants being just a ceiling, right? But you've broke through that ceiling a long, long time ago. So because there are 35 cents and 75 cents, I think, are the exercise prices here. So fantastic. You also have some analyst coverage outstanding, or yeah, you have some analysts following you, some analyst coverage. Can you give us a quick update? What are they calling for? What's their price targets?
Yeah, so first out was Lauren McConnell with Paradigm. Most recently, we've had Michael Gray launch full coverage through Agentis. Um, Michael was down to site just a little while ago before launching. And then Lead has put coverage out originally. And then, yeah, we have a few more, I think, definitely coming up. Hanneman Partners out of Europe is also covering us. But we've had a lot of people to site over the summer, and we've got a number of site tours coming up this fall that are going to see some of the banks and a number of other groups get to actually put their feet on the ground. And once they do that, they're able to get coverage out and get that information out to people. Price targets range quite a bit. Earliest, in that kind of 250 to 350 range was the early stuff. Michael Gray's coverage, bit more thorough on the modeling side and kind of putting together drill results, and the most up to date in terms of having a look at the drilling. He's got a $10.60 NAV, net asset value to share price sort of thing. So that's pretty exciting. Certainly, it's nice to have other people kind of showing that room to grow, or those multiples that are still there. Or that we certainly believe are still there.
Yeah, absolutely. Like $2.60 right now, $10.90. I think I need to talk to Michael. He's very optimistic here. Fantastic. No, I like seeing that, and he's been an early supporter of Snowline and has been riding that success wave for a while, which is fantastic. So it's great to see. I was going to say, next step, I think we need to set the scene here. We need to talk about Suriname, the country you're in, and of course the Guyana Shield. Do you want to give us a bit of a regional overview first before we dive into the Antino project?
Sure. Well, I mean, I think the big story that you hear from a lot of companies that are doing exploration work down here or doing in the Guyana Shield is that geologically speaking, it's rocks that are contiguous with the rocks in the Brien Shield of West Africa, and so we're looking at greenstone belts that are very similar to those there, and to be very similar to the greenstone belts in the Canadian Shield as well. So rocks that a lot of people I think are familiar with in terms of what the mineralization is like, what metallurgy you'd expect, that sort of thing. And then, we've kind of ourselves, we're in a very particular, very, I think, interesting part of that geology, kind of smack dab in the middle of the greenstone belt proper. And then, right at the kind of junction between two big splays or big, big shear zones that come up through the Guyana Shield as a whole, kind of through Suriname and into English Guyana to the west.
Catch us up a little bit with like permitting situation. Like, how easy is it? You mentioned, of course, in your presentation, pretty much like every mining and exploration company, that you're in a top tier jurisdiction, right? But explain to us why you feel that that is actually the case.
Yeah, I say it all the time that we're in a mining friendly jurisdiction. Suriname, just some background, I guess. Suriname, it's pretty small country overall, like 400 by 400 kilometers, 650,000 people live there, but a very gold focused economy. 80% of exports a couple of years ago were gold and gold related. So really there's most of that, or actually about half of that, comes from the two major producers in the country. You've got the Marion mine with Newmont that's been running for a number of years, and then for almost 2 decades, Rosebel has been operating. So there's a proven track record of long periods of stable mining. And with it just being such a big part of the economy, I think there's a vested interest in kind of keeping that, moving as it has.
Why do you think there's vested interest again in the Guyana Shield? Because it felt like there was a bit of activity and then it sort of subsided. Now Reunion Gold sort of opened that again, and now you're following up, obviously, very successfully. There's other companies like G2 Goldfields just across the border. It feels like it was very quiet, and all of a sudden there's a resurgence of activity. The last 24 months in particular, it feels like. Was there a significant event or a trigger for that?
I think some of the development that's, particularly for Guyana, some of the development that's come along with the oil and gas, or the offshore oil and gas discoveries and development, started to push a bit more, interest, or had people paying attention a bit more to the opportunities down there. In Suriname, they've also have some offshore oil and gas. They're a few years behind the Guyana side of things, but just having all of that attention and infrastructure and everything that comes along with those sorts of discoveries, particularly for countries that don't have that many people, it really, just kind of started the stage, or set the stage and put a focus on it. Beyond that, though, I mean, the success, like you say, with Reunion, seeing some actual M&A activity with Anglo coming into the G2 story, and then the follow-up investment in the second round as well. So there's a lot of people paying attention.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It seems like the hotspot on the globe right now. When I think about exploration and where to look, right? Very similar to West Africa, as you said. Like Ivory Coast seems to be extremely hot right now as well in terms of exploration and exploration success as well.
Yeah, right? and we see the West African comparison like, beyond just the geology and the. I think what at this point is maybe a cliche slide in everyone's presentation, but um, because the geology is so similar, I think developing countries still, but you've got the same sort of understanding of the politics and how things work there. So mining companies, throughout the area who have experience in that West African, those West African rocks, they're very much interested in the Guyana Shield as a whole because it's a number of jurisdictions that politically just risks on a lot of fronts are substantially lower. But you can really get things done.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, and I agree. It's absolutely untouched territory to a degree as well, despite looking at some of the maps, like you got Zijin and Newmont in there, as you mentioned. But other than that, it's pretty virgin, for lack of a better term.
It really is. I mean, and that's, done quite a few tours at this point. And I think the big takeaways from people often, one of them is flying into the site and just flying over and seeing, as you fly along rivers and seeing people working in the creeks and just seeing all of that activity, but still so much that just hasn't even been touched. And much of the creek type things or small little gold mines, no one's been there with a drill. So there's a lot of opportunity for some really big discoveries in the country.
Yeah, no, phenomenal. Let's get into the Antino project. Let's run us a bit through that. You just mentioned you just acquired 51%. You just made payment here. Run us a bit through the history. Like, what's the deal terms? Who's the vendor? Give us a bit of a background.
Yeah, so the vendor, or the optionor, is our Surinamese group called Nano Resources. They've had the concessions for almost 30 years, and we actually acquired the original option agreement as an assignment, but we've now obviously taken over completely the option agreement and moved forward with them. They've been great partners on the ground. The terms, we just hit the 51% mark. There's a $10 million US spend requirement for stage 2, which takes us to 70%. I'd say we're on track to hit that around April, May next year with our kind of current pace of exploration activities. And with that, it takes us to 70%. And from there, we can spend another 10 million to get us to 75, or we can convert right away into a joint venture and move forward on a joint venture front with the vendors.
Run us a bit through, like, what attracted you to the project? Like, how did it pop up on your radar? What did you see? What did you acquire when you bought it? Obviously, didn't buy just virgin ground and hopes and dreams. So something must have attracted you to it to enter deal terms that force you to make $10 million investments, right? What attracted you, Antino?
It's kind of funny, actually. Like when I first saw presentation, I started looking at it. I mean, just the terms themselves. I mean, we started as a $6 million market cap exploration company, with a few $100,000 in the bank, kind of thing, coming into Antino. And when we actually saw the deal structure, as it is, I mean, that seemed pretty expensive at the time. At this time, certainly seems pretty reasonable, given the scale of discovery we've made. But what we started with, or how we acquired it, basically, I was introduced to another company working in the area that had the option agreement. They'd already put some work into the ground. They'd done probably about $250,000 US in work. Most of it due diligence type things, resampling historic core, which there's quite a bit on site. Organizing things that way, getting a database together. They reprocessed some of the historic geophysics. They had a structural geologist out to do some work and mapping on the ground. They flew LiDAR over half the property, which was a big part of our early success, or helping to understand the geology. So we came into all of that. It was, I think at the very beginning, we were marking the story as effectively turnkey exploration. But there were 2 historic operators as well that were kind of following in their footsteps, as many exploration companies do. We had Golden Star was there in the late 90s, and then Reunion Gold was there in 2006, 2008 timeframe. So, I mean, one of the big historic highlights was 62 meters at 10 grams. And so seeing something like that, you can't help but get excited and want to know if that has legs or where it goes and what that's all about. And basically that was our plan initially. And when I did the kind of due diligence trip, it was in November 2022. I, like anyone since then that's stepped foot on the property, certainly leaves impressed. Like the scale of it when you're actually standing there is really incredible.
Yeah, no, fantastic. I'm still trying to find somebody who's actually taken up somebody on LinkedIn with a project, right? Like somebody's reached out on LinkedIn. Those are usually dubious, like emails and messages, like, "Hey, I got this project in Suriname." I wouldn't even look at it, right? So I'm still trying to find somebody who's had success with messages off of LinkedIn or that odd cold email or WhatsApp message from some phone number that you've never seen before. So,
yeah, we didn't connect originally on LinkedIn, but if someone sent me a LinkedIn message today with "I've got a project in Suriname," I probably would at least message back. So.
No, often like I get messages like that. I was like, "Huh, who takes
I
them
get,
up?" Like, who
I
even
see
looks
some
at
funny
that?
ones
Like.
in kind of crazy jurisdictions and all kinds of places.
Exactly right. Let's talk a bit here and now. Of course, you've had some massive exploration success, but no real resource out yet. You're in the middle of a drill program, so run us a bit through the here and now. What's the current goal of the program? What are you trying to achieve right now?
Sure. So right now we've got 3 drills operating, and at present they're in 3 different locations. We've got one at Upper Antino, where that's kind of where the bulk of all of our results to date have come from. Except most recently, we've just put out results on Boise, which is our kind of second most advanced target area. We've done about 3,500 meters there, and I've now properly rolled into a second phase of drilling, following we had 78 meters of 2.35 and 20 meters of 7.6 in our most recent press release out of there, and we see a lot of promise. Our third rig is sitting at lower Antino, which is also, I think, a very promising target. Our plan, as I mentioned, came into the year for 45,000 meters. That's still the target for the end of the year. And then I think starting next year with additional rigs lined up, we'll shoot for probably more than that. And as far as resource, we don't really have a timing on the resource side of things. Where I think maybe 6 or 8 months ago, if you'd asked me, I might have given you some rough guidelines, but we've just continued to make such consistent discoveries, and things keep growing that until we find that limit, I don't think there's much sense in putting a timeline on one.
Well, you just put Chris Taylor on your board, and he's never put out a resource. So on Great Bear, is that something is that a feat you try to pull off as well? It's just potentially sell the company without ever putting a resource out. I'm trying to be a bit funny here, but I'm trying to understand like what the plan is moving forward, of course. So
I mean, I think like Great Bear was an ideal scenario, and I mean they did a fantastic job with the timing and getting it to go the way it did. That's not our goal. I think at least not mine. Certainly, looking at the resource piece, I think that it's a certain point in a company's kind of life cycle or exploration cycle. You get to a point where you do need to validate, for your shareholders, all of the drilling that you've done and all the money that you spent. And I think a resource is part of how you do that. But it really comes down to how quickly you grow things and how quickly you move forward with new discoveries or putting the ones we already have together. So, resource isn't out of the question. Certainly, if it was possible to do a repeat of Great Bear, I think any company would tell you that that would be a great plan. But it's not.
Yeah,
a lot of stars have to align for that.
Now, I think one reason why Great Bear got away without putting a resource out is like they made all their drill data available on the website, like pretty much like an open source model. Is that something you aspire to do as well? Like, does that make sense? And I've often heard, and I don't want to put words in your mouth here, Colin, but are you worried about artisanals or so picking up on that data, seeing where the drilling is coming from, and maybe run into trouble there?
So, to the last point, first, no, don't really worry about that. Any of the artisanal or mining guys that are on the project or operating there are contract miners to the concession owners. We've just basically today hit the 51% mark, so we're figuring out that part of our role there going forward. But I don't have any concern about releasing data and that being an issue. We have a really good relationship with people on the ground. Beyond that, yeah, I think that releasing data and giving, I think everyone that first the confidence that comes with just everything being public is a good thing, but it also I think it helps on the competitive tension side of things from long term acquisition or M&A type scenarios. Everyone's looking at the same data; they can put together the story as they see it, and then the competition kind of goes from there. We've recently, not that recently now, but recently put out all of our, any drill holes or any drill composites that we put out, composite intervals. All of our caller information is available on the website. We update that regularly with every press release. And so that information is available. Down the road, I could see us, following something similar and having everything just completely public.
Yeah, no, fantastic. I'm just looking at the map here, and Upper Antino, Busey, Lower Antino is like run me a bit through like the distances between the individual projects, and like first thought, just looking at the map, it looks like a hub and spoke model. Is that something like you would entertain? Like run us a bit through like potential scenarios, hypothetical, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, so distance wise, like from Upper Antino to Lower Antino, we're looking at 2-3 kilometers. To get to Boise, the second most advanced area, and where I'd say the bulk of the historic mining has occurred. That's 6 kilometers from Upper Antino, or from Froyo. And then the Lawa area is about 12 kilometers away. So, hub and spoke is something that could make sense. It really still depends a lot on what we find.
Yeah, it's early days. I was just a thought that popped into my head just looking at the map here real quick.
It's a very, I mean, even looking at the other deposits in Suriname, I mean, it's a common model like that. You do have that kind of centralized mill, and then it's not just one single giant pit. It's several pits. Marion itself is Marion 1, Marion 2. There's a couple others. So, and Rosebell is certainly the same way. So I think that's probably realistic. Yeah.
Colin, not a lot of companies own their own drills. Like you run into them occasionally, but it's not the norm. How did that come about, and how happy are you with that? Is that an advantage in Suriname, having your own crews and your own drill on site?
Definitely an advantage. Gives us just a level of flexibility that you wouldn't normally have. When you're hiring third party, you really are working more to that kind of, we've got a drill program because this is what we've budgeted and what we've signed a contract for. When you're running your own drills, it really becomes, this is what it costs us to drill at the pace that we're operating. And if the dollars are there, we just keep drilling. There's no seasonality to it. So the flexibility is great. How it came about, really, at the beginning, got lots of quotes for third-party operators. They're pretty expensive, and earliest on, it wasn't super easy to raise money for this sort of thing. And so, if we'd gone the third-party route, we would be looking at far fewer meters than we were able to get done with that first $3 million raise. Plus, I also had kind of the right people in place. Like I hadn't run a drilling operation before, so certainly familiar with them from my kind of geology background, that sort of thing, but had the right people in place to come in and kind of get that going on the ground. And without that, it wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. No, it is a distinct advantage because you can control costs, and as you said, you deploy when needed and just never stop. So
yeah,
no. Colin, what are some of the next press releases you can look forward to? Of course, we're always greedy. We just got one today as we record, but when is the next press release due, and drill results?
Drill results for sure. So we have we put up preliminary met work. It's been 3 or 4 months ago now. So the kind of the conclusion of that metallurgical study work that we did on the Upper Antino Froyo zone rocks and some of the tailings, we'll be getting that information out. And then drill results from, likely Froyo will be the next place to have results from. We'll get more results out to people from the ongoing Boise drilling. Had a couple of new discoveries that the guys on the ground, surficial things, have kind of locked into, and so hopefully get some news out on that also. And finally, or probably not finally, but this year we'll also get news out on the Lower Antino work that I'm pretty excited about.
No, fantastic. Awesome. We'll definitely have to catch up on that, and maybe catch up at the end of the year, see how happy you were with the results and how happy the market was, of course, as well. So expectations are high, and so far you're absolutely delivering. Congratulations on that. Colin, really appreciate you taking the time coming on the Gold Newsletter here with us, and hope to catch up with you again soon. And thanks so much for your time, everybody else. Thank you so much for tuning in here to the Gold Newsletter, company introduction to Founders Metals. If you haven't looked at the company, you should take a closer look. Absolute success story down in the Guyana Shield. And thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't done so, hit that like and subscribe button and leave a comment. What do you think about the company? We do want to hear from you. We read every comment, and make sure to share that video with like-minded investors. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll be back with lots more here on the Gold Newsletter.